Welcome to the President's Podcast. My name is Kirby Mallon. I'm your president. And with us today is Chip Norwood. Welcome, Chip.
Hi, Kirby. Thanks for having me.
Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today. And our membership is interested in meeting other members. This series of podcasts, we're getting a little more intimate of getting to know the members. And this sort of started all during COVID when we were trying to figure out how we could stay connected with each other. And it was interesting when I asked basic, simple questions afterwards, people were like, I never knew that about Chip. So we'll start with a couple of basic questions, Chip. So your business is in North Carolina, Norwood Commercial Appliance, which is also a CFESA certified company. So Chip, where were you born?
I was born in Greensboro, North Carolina.
We're batting 100. Just about everybody I've asked so far has barely left where they were born, which is interesting. Well, so you were born locally where you are now. Did you do any traveling when you were young? Did your family move around at all?
Not at all. We stayed in North Carolina. My parents still live here. My brother still lives here. I came up to Boone, which is about 2.5 hours away, to go to Appalachian State University as a business major, and just stayed up here in the mountains.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful place up there. I don't blame you. We're down here in Philadelphia, and we're trying to get out of here. So with the local situation there. But anyways, Chip, so you were born locally. You just mentioned you went to college there, so you had a college degree. I was looking at your website, and it looks like it wasn't always called Norwood. So at some point, how did you get into this business?
In 1994, I had a friend who had Moore's Refrigeration, and I started working with him and built up some sweat equity. And he was wanting his way out. And so in 1996, I bought him out and changed the name to Norwoods.
How about that? Excellent. And then I see sweat equity. I like that term. So you worked. So you were a technician. In fact, you're a CFESA Master Certified Technician, aren't you, Chip?
Yes, I want to say I got my electric back in 2000, and by 2002, I had all 4 of my certifications.
Good for you. That's pretty rare. Of all the people I've interviewed, there's been owners that know how to fix things like me. I went to college like you did for business administration, but then when I came out of college, my father and I didn't want me to come into business and not know how to read a wiring diagram. So I went back to an HVAC school because there was no place to learn how to fix an oven back then, and we didn't do refrigeration at the point. So I went back to an HVAC school to learn how motors work, how a wiring diagram worked, and then I went out as a trainee in the field. So that's a unique quality, Chip, that you have. Not only are you a technician who knows how to fix things, you're a CFESA certified technician. That's incredible.
I mean, and I still do that, Kirby. I mean, we're a small company. It's myself and 3 guys and a secretary, and I pull call with the guys just like they do. I did 6 calls this past weekend. I've been on a roof working on a hood fan, and I've changed a compressor in the last 2 weeks.
Good for you. How about that? That's amazing. They don't let me out much, but when I do go out, I enjoy it. I actually wear a jumpsuit that says Elmer Schultz, and it says Kirby over here, and I pretend I'm a trainee, and I'll ask, I'm handing tools to the technician, and I'll say to the owner, yeah, I'm a trainee for this company, Elmer Schultz. What do you think about the company? And you'll get immediate feedback from an owner, which is pretty cool. But so at Norwood Commercial Appliance, do you do just the hot side? It sounds like you also do refrigeration.
We do anything in the commercial kitchen, hot or cold. Installation, we put in hoods, we put in walk-ins.
Wow.
I mean,
All with
we're doing a 16 by 32 foot walk in the next couple of weeks.
good for you. And Chip, I don't know if you knew this, but the majority of CFESA companies are small companies like your company and my company. We're not a big company either. We have 40 employees or so, but that's not considered a large company at all within CFESA. And the majority of CFESA companies are smaller companies like yourself. Um, so I see some pictures behind you there. Are you married, Chip?
No, I am divorced, but I
Okay.
do have two daughters from my marriage.
Uh huh.
And so what you see behind me is either actually, I think it's a picture with my mom and dad and my brother and sister and with my daughters.
Okay, good for you. Well, I'm a product of divorce, as many of us are, and I have two beautiful daughters too from my first marriage. So that's great. So tell me what you love about CFESA. Being a small company, we've talked a couple times at CFESA meetings. What do you find you get from when you go to a CFESA meeting? What do you come home with? What's
Well,
important to you?
you know, the first CFESA meeting I ever went to was back in, I think, about 1999. Ron Canastro was president back then.
Yeah.
And Ron was very, you know, here's a gentleman that's been around for a long time. And he just sort of took me under his wing and was very nice to talk to you and, introduced you around as I was my first time. Matter of fact, I think the next time we were out in Monterey Bay, Ron and I even went to a Rotary makeup for a Rotary breakfast at the Monterey Bay Sunrise. I mean, the whole CFESA organization as a whole has been real good to me. As a small company, it's given me training classes that I can send employees to. I've got a couple of my guys signed up for the ice machine class coming up this fall. But over the years, as we've gone through employees, we've gone through the new tech training and the EGS training with employees that we've sent them down to. Um, and the other thing, it establishes that we're not a trunk slammer, that we are a reputable company because the fact that we're affiliated with CFESA. And we've made some connections, going to the CFESA conferences and stuff over the years. There's lots of people that I've met that I never would have been able to have met or opened doors for us as a business, whether it was just attending NAFM shows in conjunction with CFESA that opened the doors for us doing certain warranty repairs. CFESA overall has been a real good organization for us.
That's excellent to hear, Chip, and you're the ideal success story of a smaller business that is where CFESA is adding value. I've said before that I've been doing this for 33 years now, and Elmer Schultz was my grandfather, third generation family business, and I say that some of the members of CFESA I consider my best friends, even though I only see them twice a year or so. And I've just known them for so long. I could pick up the phone and call any CFESA member that I know and ask basic questions. I mean, you just told a story about your Sprinter van. We ask all the time: do you buy vans? Do you lease them? Where do you get? What kind of tires are you using? What about insurance? Stocking parts. I mean, we run the gamut of conversations that we've had over the years. I mean, the conferences are great. They're very knowledgeable, but the conversation doesn't end at 3 or 4 o'clock when the conference is over. We all go back to the bar and continue to talk shop, which is
Yeah.
which is valuable. Absolutely. So I didn't realize you've been coming to CFESA meetings for so long. Ron Canestro. I haven't heard that name in some time.
Oh, I mean, I've hit a lot of the ones over the years. The Monterey Bay, the Vancouver, Napa Valley. I mean, sometimes they were in conjunction with NAFM.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was just the conference meeting. And I got a lot out of the conference meetings. Again, you put a name with a face and get to connect. And like you said, I've been known to call other CFESA members and ask advice and ask, what do you think of this vehicle? I'm looking at buying it. Have you had any luck? Have you tried it? Um,
Right. Well, I tell you, it's funny that we've run Ford vans pretty much since day one, since I've been doing it, and we've had our fair share of issues. But we have really good luck with Ford vans. And just to my west, K and D, Dan Dibler from K and D, hates Ford vans because I believe it's because of the hills. So he's going up and down hills. He burns out transmissions and brakes all the time, where we don't. And he's I think he's a Nissan guy, and they're not making Nissans anymore. But you told me a funny story about your Sprinter. You want to share with the membership what happened to you recently when you got your Sprinter repaired?
um, well, a couple years ago, we bought our first Sprinter just as an experiment. We had been pretty much an all Chevy. We've got Chevy 1 tons and we've got Chevy 4-wheel drive trucks, but we decided to branch out and try a Sprinter. But one of the drawbacks with the Sprinter was there is no place in Boone or within 2.5 hours to get it serviced. So I had gone off the mountain uh, to get a brake job done. And I figure anytime I can get 40,000 miles on a vehicle and get the first brake job in 40,000 miles up here in the mountains, that's actually saying something good about the vehicle.
Yeah.
Um, but I took it down for a 40,000 mile service. They had it all day long. They did a front brake job, they did a rear brake job. And a little over 3 miles after I left the dealer, the driver's side rear tires came off. And needless to say, I had to make arrangements for a wrecker to get the vehicle back to the dealer because they had already closed at this point. And got a ride to a local hotel and spent the night. And the next morning, they came into the dealership to find a truck with no rear wheels. And you couldn't have asked for anybody to have dealt with it any better. They've been very good to deal with. They were apologetic. They picked up, the repair, no questions. They've picked up the motel room. They've picked up the wrecker bill. They were trying to figure out what's the best way because it was going to take a couple days now to fix the problem and the best way to get me back to Boone. And they came up with, well, the best thing we can come up with is we're going to Uber you to Boone. So they Ubered me 2.5 hours up the road to Boone.
Oh wow. You can't make that stuff up, Chip. I'm telling you, it's interesting. Ironically, we had a tire on one of the Fords fall off. Same kind of scenario. Went in for service, put brakes on it. They forgot to tighten something up. The technician's driving down the road. Here's something rattling, and here goes his wheel going down the highway next to him. So now you can't buy any kind of vans, right? They're literally not making Ford vans right now. I know that.
Well, in my thing, I tell everybody somebody was looking after me because when I left the dealer, I could have hopped on I-40 and been doing 65 or 70. But instead, I decided to go down the road on the back road to the Arby's and get a milkshake. And this actually happened as I was pulling out of the Arby's. So an Arby's milkshake could very easily have saved my life, Kirby.
So I got to ask, you're vanilla or chocolate kind of guy?
Neither. With Arby's, it was the coffee. It's their Jamocha shake.
Ooh, good one.
And
Really?
I wasn't going 5 or 6 miles an hour when the rear wheels came off. So I was very fortunate.
How about that? I'll have to try one of those. I haven't tried one of them. What's your favorite food, Chip?
Anything seafood.
Yeah.
I like to dive. And so pretty much anything seafood.
Uh-huh. So I saw that on your website. It looked like you were diving in ice, and it looked like you were somewhere freezing cold. So I assume when you're not working or you're not on a rooftop putting a compressor in, that you're you one of your things to do is diving. Is that accurate?
Uh, if you looked at the website and you saw a picture of me in ice, that was actually, I'm also a volunteer with the local rescue squad and one of the local fire departments. And the ice suit that I was wearing was at a polar plunge where people were jumping into an ice covered lake.
Oh,
Uh, and so, yes, I do volunteer with the local fire department. And sometimes there are things that you're asked to do that are a little different.
uh-huh. Yeah. Well, so you're a volunteer. Have you ever had to do any crazy rescues?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've been doing this since 1982, Kirby, as a volunteer and been an EMT. And so, whether it's high angle or extrication or water, um, done it for years.
Good for you. How about that? That's excellent. So what else do you do for fun, Chip, if you're when you're not working?
Well, actually, back in the early 2000s, I went to a CFESA conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yeah.
And while I was out there at the conference, I was like, I've never seen the Grand Canyon or Sedona or stuff like that, and I'd like to go see it. So since I was out in the Southwest, I stayed a few extra days and rode around the Southwest. And since that conference, I have done 17 backpacking trips to the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Really?
And so I've got 85 nights and 120 days in the Grand Canyon in Arizona, and I live on the East Coast. And so I got addicted to backpacking in the canyon.
Really? How about that? So wow, I've never done that. God bless his soul. Paul Tecatli died of cancer a couple of years
Yep.
ago, past president, and I know that when he found out he was sick, he made a couple trips. He went with John Schwint, and they went to the Grand Canyon, and they were on one of those little rafts that go down the water and everything, and they spent nights doing what you just talked about, and he talked about that trip for the rest of his years, and I'm glad he was able to experience something like that. So that's awesome that you're climbing around on rooftops and changing out compressors, and then you're jumping in freezing cold water, or you're hiking down in the Grand Canyon. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Both of my daughters over the years, my youngest daughter's been a half a dozen trips with me while she was going to college and stuff. We would schedule trips around her fall break, and we got a group of friends that would go out there once or twice a year and go backpacking, and, you know, good times, good memories.
That's awesome. Good for you. Not a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't spend. Well, they spend too much time working and not enough time playing. And I think if anybody knows me well enough that we work pretty hard, but we have a lot of fun too. Here at Elmer Schultz, and my wife Amber and I do our fair share of traveling. And you got to do that. I mean, next thing um, it could all end in a moment. So back to CFESA, it's interesting that you take advantage of all those classes, and I'm glad you do. We also do the same thing, and I think that's because the bigger CFESA companies have more of a training schedule with a trainer and all that kind of stuff. But the CFESA training, whether it's the EGS class or the new tech class or refrigeration, those classes are really good. And so what would your if you hired a new technician, do you have like a one, two, three? Do you train them for a couple weeks first, or how do you decide when you're going to send a technician to a CFESA training?
I've basically brought a technician or a helper in and let them work as grunt labor, helping us install hoods and walk ins and install restaurant equipment. Or if it's changing out a compressor, you know, I've never had a technician turn down help when you can send a helper with them just to carry tools and the compressor and to get stuff from the ground to the roof or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, and so once they've been here for a while and exhibited some good learning, just on in the field training, I've taken that technician and given them some of the CFESA books and said, look, I'm going to give you a raise based upon certifications, and we'll give you X amount per hour for each certification that you get. So I want to send you home with some books. I want you to go home and do some self study, answer some of the questions, come back with questions. And once you've put forth a little effort for doing that on your part, I'll be more than happy to send you to EGS. Or, like I said, I've got two guys that I've registered this fall for the ice machine, the Advantage to the Ice Machine class. Ironically, we do warranty work for all five of the manufacturers that the ice machine program is covering this year. And the fact that I can send two guys for 1 week and be done with it.
Right.
And
That's excellent. It's such a unique field, fixing commercial cooking equipment, and it's such a unique group of people. It's I've been preaching for I've been president, that we will pay you to train you. I mean, you can take a kid out of high school and train them, and as long as as long as they show up to work, they don't have the Monday morning blues. They can hold a wrench in their hand, and they can talk to the customer. That's a big part of it, is communicating with the customer. But if they have those qualities, and we will do the same thing. We will pay them. We will pay you to train you, and it's a career that you can take anywhere with you. I mean, one of my technicians say, I want to move to North Carolina. I say, well, call Norwood. Chip will hire you, and you'll know that you'll have a quality technician that is trained by CFESA, have come from a CFESA certified company. So that's excellent, Chip. I do want to wrap it up, or at the 20-minute mark here, or whatever. So real quick, Chip. Let me see what kind of questions. Are you a beer drinker, or wine drinker, or whiskey drinker?
yes.
But how about pizza, red or white?
Oh, white.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Well, I wanted to thank you, Chip, for your time today. That was a really interesting talk, and I hope to see you in Nashville. Our next conference is in Nashville, coming in September. So I hope to see you there. And thank you for your time today, Chip. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.